Hi friends, in this video we're going to talk about how to send data from files or syslog to Elasticsearch using Filebeat. You see, Elasticsearch is a database and Filebeat is actually an agent which can push data from various sources to Elasticsearch. So Filebeat can extract data from log files or from syslog and push that data to Elasticsearch. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to set up Filebeat as a Windows service in a Windows machine and how can you make Filebeat to continuously monitor log files and send the data from those log files to Elasticsearch database. And obviously we can use Kibana to visualize the data created by Filebeat in Elasticsearch. We're going to do that also. We've already covered in our previous videos how to set up Elasticsearch database and Kibana. So if you don't know how to set up Elasticsearch and Kibana, I will leave the link of the playlist in the description so you can go through those videos first. But for this video, we have Elasticsearch and Kibana installed in our system. We're gonna install Filebeat and set up Filebeat to ship logs from log files to Elasticsearch database. Alright, enough talking. Let's try to install Filebeat in Windows. You can download the Filebeat zip file from the Elasticsearch official site. So this is the site. Let's go there. And here you go to the download Filebeat page. Click on the Windows x64 zip file and download the zip file. The zip file is downloading. After you download the zip file of Filebeat, extract the contents of that folder into a folder in C program files Filebeat. You can see in my computer I have extracted the folder contents of Filebeat zip file to my computer's C program files Filebeat folder. If you don't have a Filebeat folder in the program files, just create a folder called Filebeat in your program files and copy the zip file contents into this. Now Filebeat is downloaded in your computer. Now we have to run this Filebeat as a Windows service. To install the Filebeat as a Windows service in your Windows machine, you need to run this command in an administrative command line. Then the Filebeat background service will be installed in your computer. Alright, let's try to open an administrative command prompt. I'm going to open the command prompt, run it as an administrator. Now let's try to copy this file path and cd to that path. So now I have opened an administrative command prompt in the Filebeat folder. Now I can run a command to install Filebeat as a Windows background service. So this is the command. Instead of running this ps1 directly, we are using this command because your computer's PowerShell may have restrictions on executing scripts. So now use this command and press enter, and then it's gonna ask whether you want to run the script. Click R, run once, and then you got a service created and the name of the service is Filebeat, and I can test that. Actually I can just write sc query Filebeat and you can see we have a service name Filebeat. If the service was not present, I would have got some error that service would not exist or something like that. But when I did sc query Filebeat, I got a service name matching Filebeat. Alright, we have installed Filebeat as a Windows background service successfully. Alright, let's close this command prompt now. You see, Filebeat should be configured to pull the data from this log file and push the data to Elasticsearch database. That means your Filebeat service should be configured to talk to Elasticsearch database. Let's try to do that now. So Filebeat can be configured using the filebeat.yml file. So let's try to open that with VS Code. You can open the YML file with any text editor like Notepad, but VS Code gives you nice syntax highlighting for YML files. Alright, now we will configure Filebeat to connect to Elasticsearch database. That can be found by searching for a section called output.elasticsearch. So here I got a section in my YML file called output.elasticsearch, and here you need to write the hosts. So this is basically the host name of your Elasticsearch instance. I'm running my Elasticsearch in my PC only, so the host would be localhost 9200 and it's actually running on HTTPS. So I've written protocol HTTPS and I've given username and password, and since it's running on localhost, it's not running on some domain name. The SSL would be obviously a dummy SSL, so that's why I've written SSL verification mode as none. But if you are using SSL and the hostname is a valid hostname with valid SSL, you should not write this, but instead you have to write the SSL key and etc. But we are not covering that right now. Currently I'm just writing SSL verification mode none. If your Elasticsearch host is running on HTTP, you can just write protocol as HTTP and you can remove this line altogether. Alright, it's that simple to configure Elasticsearch connectivity in Filebeat. Now let's try to connect Filebeat with Kibana so that we can load default dashboards, index patterns, etc. So search for setup.kibana in the filebeat.yml file, and here you need to configure the Kibana connectivity. I am running Kibana on this same machine on port 5601, so the host would be localhost 5601 and it's running in HTTP, so I have written protocol as HTTP and the username and password for the Kibana dashboard. I have given the Elastic user itself. Once again, if you want to know about setting up Kibana, I've already made a video on that, and you can find the link of that in the description. And that's it. Now your Filebeat is configured to connect with Kibana. Due to this configuration, you can make Filebeat to set up initial assets like Filebeat Index pattern, Kibana dashboards, etc. in Kibana. Alright, to summarize, I've opened the filebeat.yml file in the Filebeat folder and configured Filebeat to connect to Elasticsearch using the output.elasticsearch section, and I've configured Filebeat to connect to Kibana using the setup.kibana section. Alright, let's try to close the YML file. Now the Filebeat service is installed, but we did not start the service. So to start the service, you can go to the services.msc. So you can just open services.msc from the run command, or you can just click on the Windows button and search for services.msc. You got the services app, and search for Filebeat here. The service is installed as Filebeat here in my services, and you can right click and start the service right away. Obviously I got error because my Elasticsearch service is not running. So let's try to start Elasticsearch and Kibana first and then start Filebeat, because Filebeat needs to connect to Elasticsearch, right? So I got Elasticsearch installed on my machine, and just right click and start the Elasticsearch, and let's try to start Kibana also. So I got my Kibana service, right click and start the Kibana service. Alright, I got my Elasticsearch and Kibana both running. Now let's try to start Filebeat. So I'm going to go to the Filebeat service, right click and start the service. Alright, my Filebeat service is running now. While starting the service, you get some errors and you're not able to debug. It would be better to see the logs of Filebeat. So it's very easy to see the logs of Filebeat in your Windows machine. So to see the logs, you need to go to the C program data, and there you got to go to the Filebeat and open the logs folder, and you can see the logs of Filebeat. Now just open the logs with any notepad or VS Code. So I'm opening my logs with VS Code, and these are the logs. So if you're not able to start the Filebeat service, or if you want to see the logs of Filebeat, you can go to C program data Filebeat logs folder, and you can see the logs of Filebeat here. Alright, great, Filebeat is running now. So we have set up the connectivity between the Filebeat and Elasticsearch now. Remember, we have set up Kibana connectivity in Filebeat. So when you run the command filebeat.exe setup -e, the Elasticsearch index template and the sample dashboards and some ingest pipelines would be installed by Filebeat in the Elasticsearch and Kibana. So let's try to run this filebeat.exe setup -e command, since we have anyways configured the connectivity of Kibana in the filebeat.yml file. So I got my Filebeat service ready. I've ran it for the first time. Now I'm setting the Kibana dashboards. So I need to go to the folder of Filebeat, open an administrative command prompt here. So I'm going to open the command prompt, run as administrator, and again copy the folder path, paste it here, cd the folder path. Now I'm in the Filebeat folder with an administrative command prompt. Clear the command line and just write filebeat.exe setup -e. So when I run this command, Filebeat will connect to Elasticsearch database and create the index templates and initial assets like dashboards for making working with Filebeat easy in Kibana and Elasticsearch. You can see the index template setup is finished and it's loading dashboards now. You can see Filebeat is setting some assets like dashboards, etc. And it loaded the dashboards, ingest pipelines, and all the setup required for the first use of Filebeat. So alright, we have set up the Filebeat, Elasticsearch and Kibana. Now let's set up Filebeat to read some logs from files and ship it to Elasticsearch. So Filebeat can read data from variety of data sources like files, syslog, etc. In this video, we will cover how to configure Filebeat to read data from files and syslog. So let's try to cover how to use Filebeat to read data from files. So in the filebeat.yml file, you can use the section filebeat.inputs. So to illustrate shipping the logs from files to Elasticsearch database, let's try to create some dummy logs. So I've taken an empty folder and let's try to create a file here. And let's try to name the file as testlogs.log. You can make it txt also, but I'm writing it testlogs.log. And let's try to open it with a notepad. And let's try to write some 3 lines in this file. So I'm going to write, this is the first line. So I've got 3 lines that can be shipped by Filebeat to Elasticsearch. So let's try to copy this folder path. So let's try to go to the Filebeat installation folder and open filebeat.yml, and you got the section filebeat.inputs, and this is a list of inputs you can give. So this is the first input in the list. So I'm going to write type filestream and give any unique identifier to identify your input. So this is my identifier, and make enable as true because it should be enabled, and then paste the path which you have just copied So this is the path of my folder, and I want to say \star.log. So when you restart Filebeat service, it's going to scan all the log files in this folder, and if there are any changes, it will ship the changes to the Elasticsearch. So using this configuration, you're not only watching one file, you're watching all the .log files in a folder. So paths is a list. You can even configure multiple folder paths to watch for logs in this Filebeat input. For example, you can even give something like C program data Elasticsearch logs star, and you can even add one more folder path. So this way, under one Filebeat input, you can monitor multiple folders and ship logs from them. So this is how simple you can configure Filebeat to read data from text files. So just save this configuration. I'm going to retry as admin. Alright, the filebeat.yml file is saved. Now let's try to right click and restart Filebeat service. Alright, now technically Filebeat should go to our logs folder, see that there is a file called testlogs.log and ship the lines to the Elasticsearch database. Now to verify that, let's go to Kibana. My Kibana is running on localhost 5601. So I'm going to go there and log in. Now my Kibana is logged in. Since I have run filebeat.exe setup -e command, the index pattern and the index template all should be loaded already in Kibana. Let's try to verify that. Let's go to Kibana. In the left menu, go for stack management, go for index management, and search in the index templates for Filebeat. So I got already the index template Filebeat because this was created by the Filebeat service. And then in the data streams, you should see the Filebeat data stream already set up by the Filebeat setup -e command. Alright, let's try to verify now whether the Filebeat has sent the lines from the text file to Elasticsearch. So in Kibana, go to the left menu and search for discover. And here make the index pattern as Filebeat. And here in the last 15 minutes, I got my Filebeat shipping 2 lines from the text file. We have written 3 lines, but we got only 2 lines because it doesn't count the last line. So let's try to go to the folder, and here in the testlogs.log, let's try to open it with Notepad, and let's try to insert another blank line and just save it and close it. And now let's try to again refresh this. Now you got the third line also. So now Filebeat has sent the logs from our text file to Elasticsearch, and we are able to see it in real time. Now again, let's go to the text file, and now let's try to write another line. This is the 4th line, and now save it, close the file. And since Filebeat is running, if I just reload it, I should see the 4th log also. So this way Filebeat is watching the files in real time and sending the data to Elasticsearch. You don't need to do anything special. Now let's see what's the data here. So in the Discover tab, I'm seeing some logs. Let's try to expand a log here, and let's try to view the JSON. Here you can see a lot of metadata is being attached. So in each log, under the source.message, you got your data shipped in Elasticsearch. All other data is basically the metadata about the log. So it's that simple to set up Filebeat and ship logs from text files to Elasticsearch database. Alright, you can add static fields to your logs from your configuration file itself. Further, just go to the input. This is my input, filestream input, and here I can add another attribute called fields. And let's try to add another attribute. I'm going to say data underscore type, and the data type is text line, so I'm going to write text underscore lines. So now for each log, a new attribute called data type would be attached, and the value would be text lines. So let's try to save this configuration file, and now let's try to create a new line here in our log file. Open with Notepad, new data, save this file, and let's try to reload. Alright, I did not find the new field because I did not actually restart Filebeat because I have changed the Filebeat configuration. So let's try to go to our services and restart Filebeat for the new configuration to be effective. Alright, Filebeat is restarted. Now let's try to add another log here. Open the log with the text editor and write more data, save this, close this, and again load Filebeat, and I got a new log. Let's try to expand the log, go to JSON, and here in the fields I got data type as text lines. So this way, by adding extra fields statically in your inputs of Filebeat YML file, you can easily distinguish your logs generated by each input of the Filebeat YML file. Alright, now let's see the log in the Filebeat. You got something called message, source.message, and your data is here. Suppose if your data is in JSON, you need to parse that JSON to extract fields from that so that you can do more querying and analytics on the data. So how can you parse your data before it's saved as a document in Elasticsearch? So one way to parse your data before storing it in Elasticsearch is by using parsers. So let's see how we can parse JSON logs in the text file before sending it to Elasticsearch. So in your Filebeat input specification, add another attribute called parsers, and there's an inbuilt parser called ndjson. So write a parser called ndjson. So basically it's new line delimited JSON. That means each line in the log file should be a JSON. And define ndjson log here. So I'm going to write the target. So basically target is the field in which the JSON would be parsed and kept. So let's try to create a field called msg_json, message JSON. So the parsed JSON would be kept in this field of the log. And since we are parsing JSON data, let's try to make the static field type as JSON data. Let's try to save the configuration. Alright, our configuration is saved. And now let's try to restart Filebeat. Now let's try to create some JSON data in the logs. Let's try to create a new file here, new text file, and just rename it as test JSON data.log. And let's try to open this. Alright, I've created a log file with JSON in each line. So let's try to save this log file and close this. And now in Kibana discover page, let's try to reload the data. And we are seeing some new log files generated here. Let's try to open the latest log, and we need to search for msg_json. Alright, I got my name parsed here, name as ABCD, but it's not under msg_json because we did a small mistake here. It should be indented correctly. Target is under ndjson, but it was not indented, so we did not cover the ndjson target. So let's try to save this now. Now let's try to reload our configuration. So reload Filebeat. Now let's try to open the log file again. Let's try to write another line, and let's try to save this, and let's try to reload in Kibana again. And let's try to see the new log, and here let's try to search for msg_json. You got message json.city and message json.name. So the data from the text file is parsed as JSON, and we are able to see the data here even in the JSON. And here you got message json.city and message json.name. So just by using a simple parser, the text in your log file is being parsed as JSON. One more scenario is the data in your text file would be something like a syslog data. So you can even parse syslog from this Filebeat configuration. Syslog parser is also present in Filebeat. So instead of using ndjson parser, you can just write syslog here, and you can write the target field where your syslog data would be parsed and kept. And here you can add one more thing like format, and you can specify what is the format of your syslog message. So if your syslog message is a format RFC3164, you got to write something like this. So this way you can easily parse syslog also using the parsers in the Filebeat input. So if you go to the Filebeat documentation, you have these parsers. We have talked about the syslog parser and the ndjson parser. There is also something called multi-line parser. So Filebeat by default parses one line as data and sends it to Elasticsearch. But you can combine multiple lines, like suppose if your log is consisting of 3 lines at a time, you can write multi-line 3 and then parse the log. And one more important thing is you can use multiple parsers together. For example, in this official documentation, this configuration first parses the multi-line and uses that as an input to the ndjson parser. So if your JSON is in 3 lines, first 3 lines would be considered as one line, and then that data would be parsed as ndjson, and the output would be stored under the root with the message key msg. Alright, now we have covered how to ship data from files using Filebeat service. Alright, I have told that we will cover shipping the data from files and syslog also. So now let's see the example of how to ship data from syslog. So instead of the input type as filestream, you can make the input type as syslog. If your input type is syslog, you can parse the syslog also by giving the input called format, and here you can write format as RFC3164, or else whatever the syslog format you are listening on. And suppose you are listening on UDP port 514, I can just write something like protocol.udp, and here I'm going to write the host as localhost port 514. So this configures my Filebeat to listen on syslog in this format RFC3164, and the protocol it would listen on is UDP from the host localhost on port 514. So this way you can configure Filebeat to read data from syslog as a syslog listener instead of reading data from files. So now if you restart Filebeat, your Filebeat will be a syslog listener, and this will listen for syslog inputs on port 514. So you can create a program to send data to this syslog listener, and Filebeat will ship the data to Elasticsearch. Obviously, in case of syslog, you don't need these paths, and that's it. I've configured Filebeat to listen on a syslog input on port 514 protocol UDP. You can even make the protocol as TCP also. So that's it. That's how you can configure Filebeat to listen on syslog. Alright, we have used Filebeat parsers to parse data. You know, a lot of people are using Filebeat, and a lot of devices generate logs in their own format. So the community and Elasticsearch has created a concept called modules. Using modules, you can parse common log formats in Filebeat. For example, if you are using a FortiGate firewall, there is a module called Fortinet module, and you can configure it to parse the logs of the FortiGate firewall and extract the meaningful data from the logs and store it in Elasticsearch. If you don't use modules, you have to write your own data processors to parse the log and extract data from it. So modules are a great way to extract data from your logs. So let's see how we can use Filebeat modules to parse common log formats. Using Filebeat modules is really easy. In the Filebeat folder, open the modules.d folder, and you have a lot of modules already present here. So in our example, we were talking about parsing the logs from the FortiGate firewall. So there is this Fortinet module here. So you got the fortinet.yml.disable. To enable a module, just rename it and remove the .disabled and click enter. Now you got a YML file. Any file with the .yml extension would be enabled as a module in this modules.d folder. So now let's open the fortinet.yml file. Since I want to parse the firewall logs, there is this firewall section in this Fortinet module, and it's enabled false. Let's make it enabled as true. So in your FortiGate firewall, you would have configured to send the logs to this IP address on port 514. So you're going to write the var input as UDP. So your Filebeat will be listening on UDP, and you can write the syslog port as 514 and the syslog host as the IP address of this computer instead of localhost, so that the firewall can send the logs to you. Suppose my PC IP address is 192.168.1.10. So the syslog would be listening on this IP address on this machine, and that's it. Now your Windows machine can listen for FortiGate logs, and you can enable log forwarding in your FortiGate firewall, and the logs would come to your Filebeat, and it will parse the FortiGate logs and generate logs and store in Elasticsearch. So this way you can have a lot of log format parsing here in the module section. So in the modules.d folder, if you want to parse nginx logs, search for nginx, you got nginx.yml. If you want to parse IIS logs, you got iis.yml.disabled. Just rename this to iis.yml and your module will be enabled. For example, I want to ship IIS logs. I'm gonna rename this, remove the .disabled extension, open the iis.yml file and make it enabled as true, and you can give the path of your IIS logs, and that's it. Your IIS web server logs will be shipped to Elasticsearch, and the data of the logs would also be parsed as JSON and sent to Elasticsearch. So this way, Filebeat modules are a great way to save you a lot of work to parse common log formats. If you are using a fairly famous brand device, or if you are using a fairly famous technology like Nginx, Kafka, etc., the chances are you already have a module present in Filebeat. So this makes parsing of common log formats super easy, and you don't need to do anything, and the logs would be sent as JSON to your Elasticsearch database. So Filebeat modules are awesome. Alright, now let's cover how to see the index in Kibana. We've already seen that in the beginning. Let's try to see it again. So in the Kibana, go to stack management and search for index management, and in the data streams you can see our Filebeat data stream, and it has one index under it. So you can even modify the Filebeat index template. Go to the index templates and search for Filebeat and click on Filebeat, go to manage, edit, and maybe you can change the index mapping, the fields the index is mapped to, and you can change the index settings. I can add this field like number of replicas as 1 or else number of replicas as 0, and at the end go to the review template and save the template. So if you want to delete the data, just go to the data streams, click on this stream and delete it, and again reload Filebeat, and again a stream would be created and new data will be inserted into Filebeat data stream. Alright, that's how you can see the Filebeat indices in Kibana. Currently Filebeat is using data streams. If you want, you can make the data to be stored in indexes also. So to do that, go to the index templates, go to the Filebeat and manage, edit the index template, and here you can uncheck use data stream. Then Filebeat will not use data stream, it will use indexes to store the data. And obviously you can control the data retention of Filebeat. Go to index lifecycle policies and search for Filebeat. You got the Filebeat index lifecycle policy, click on that, and then you can configure Filebeat to delete the data after something like 90 days, or you can make the Filebeat to move old data to cold nodes, etc. So that's it guys. This is how you can use Filebeat to ship logs from files or syslog or variety of inputs to Elasticsearch. You can see I've created a blog post on setting up Filebeat and configuring Filebeat with notes, images and relevant examples so that you can copy paste and practice it in your own machine. I've also given you the references to the official documentation so that you can do further reading. Please check out the link of this blog post in the description of this video. Please ask questions or post your valuable feedback in the comment section. Hope you like this video guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.